Okay, we are on live now.
We are always preparing to protect our loved ones. Not always for what will happen, but for what could happen. With a life insurance cover that grows every year, you ensure that whatever comes your way, your loved ones are always protected. Introducing AIA Super Protector, the life insurance that helps you prepare to put your loved ones first. AIA Insurance.
Morning, Masa.
Morning, Sana. How are you?
You pay up the Nisa? That ain't a cream, but it's like a Nagala. Gilana.
Right. Morning.
ආයිබෝන් සර්.
අයිබෝන්. බොමු තැමිලි ගෙඩිය.
බොමු.
හැම වෙලාවෙම මාරු සල්ලි අත ගන්න ඕනේ නෑ මාමි. ස්මාර්ට් ෆෝන් එකකට අන්න අර වගේ ලංකා QR සපෝට් කරන UPay app එක දාගෙන ඒකෙන් ගනුදෙනු කරන්න.
ඕක පුරුද්දකට තියාගත්තාම වැඩෙත් ලේසි අපිත් ආරක්ෂිතයි.
ආර්සියත් අය. අයියෝ මිස් මාරු සල්ලි නැද්ද?
ෆෝන් එකේ apps එකක් තිබුණත් වැඩක් නෑ. ලංකා QR කෝඩ් එක සපෝට් කරන UPay app එක නැත්තම්. කීයද බුදුලාලි ගාන?
RCC භායි.
මැසේජ් එකේ.
හරි මත්ය සල්ලියාව.
දෙන්න මිස් සල්ලි.
ආනෝනා.
මම UPay app එකෙන් පේ කරන්න.
හරි මරු.
Morning. සලියාවනේ.
හරි මිස් සල්ලියාව මිස්.
අන්න කෙල්ලෝ.
Bye.
අන්න කෙල්ලෝ.
සානා.
Google Play Store හෝ Apple App Store හරහා UPay app එක නොමිලේ ඩවුන්ලෝඩ් කරගන්න.
CIMA qualification and CGMA designation has provided me with the edge to be successful in securing the current position with my employer.
The CIMA C-Suite program helped me bridge the gap between my existing knowledge with the latest trends in business and finance.
The CGMA designation had opened career doors for me. I got an opportunity thanks to the skills I learned from C-Suite program.
Through the CIMA C-Suite program, I learned how to be more strategic in my thinking at work. This has given me more confidence when making high-level decisions.
The CIMA C-Suite program shaped my critical thinking skills.
What makes a nation great? Is it the richness of its heritage, the beauty of its natural bounty, the state of its state-of-the-art, or is it the bonds that bind us? For decades, SLT Mobitel has been linking Sri Lankan lives and uniting the nation. Whatever the future may look like, we'll always be right here, connecting you to the things you care most about. SLT Mobitel, the connection.
We are always preparing to protect our loved ones. Not always for what will happen, but for what could happen. With a life insurance cover that grows every year, you ensure that whatever comes your way, your loved ones are always protected. Introducing AIA Super Protector, the life insurance that helps you prepare to put your loved ones first. AIA Insurance.
Morning basa.
Morning sana. කොහොමද තත්ත්වය?
UPay app එක නිසා වැඩ එන එක ක්‍රීම් බනිස් වගේ නැගලා යනවා. ගිලන්න.
Right. Morning.
ආයිබෝන් සර්.
අයිබෝන්. බොමුත් තැමිලි ගෙඩිය.
බොමු.
හැම වෙලාවෙම මාරු සල්ලි අත ගන්න ඕනේ නෑ මාමේ. ස්මාර්ට් ෆෝන් එකකට අන්න අර වගේ ලංකා QR සපෝට් කරන UPay app එක දාගෙන ඒකෙන් ගනුදෙනු කරන්න.
ඕක පුරුද්දකට තියාගත්තාම වැඩෙත් ලේසි අපිත් ආරක්ෂිතයි.
ආර්සියත්තය අයෝ මිස් මාරුසල්ලි නැද්ද?
ෆෝන් එකේ ඇප් 100ක් තිබුණත් වැඩක් නෑ. ලංකා QR කෝඩ් එක සපෝට් කරන UPay app එක නැත්තම්. කීයද බුදුලාලි ගාන?
RCC භායි.
මැසේජ් එකේ.
හරි මත්ත සල්ලි ආව.
දෙන්න මිස් සල්ලි.
ආනෝනා.
මම UPay app එකෙන් පේ කරන්න.
හරි මරු.
Morning. සල්ලි ආවනේ.
හරි මිස් සල්ලි ආව මිස්.
අන්න කෙල්ලෝ.
Bye.
අන්න කෙල්ලෝ.
සානා.
Google Play Store හෝ Apple App Store හරහා UPay app එක නොමිලේ ඩවුන්ලෝඩ් කරගන්න.
CIMA qualification and CGMA designation has provided me with the edge to be successful in securing the current position with my employer.
The CIMA C-Suite program helped me bridge the gap between my existing knowledge with the latest trends in business and finance.
The CGMA designation had opened career doors for me. I got an opportunity thanks to the skills I learned from C-Suite program.
Through the CIMA C-Suite program, I learned how to be more strategic in my thinking at work. This has given me more confidence when making high-level decisions.
The CIMA C-Suite program shaped my critical thinking skills.
What makes a nation great? Is it the richness of its heritage, the beauty of its natural bounty, the state of its state-of-the-art, or is it the bonds that bind us? For decades, SLT Mobitel has been linking Sri Lankan lives and uniting the nation. Whatever the future may look like, we'll always be right here, connecting you to the things you care most about. SLT Mobitel, the connection.
We are Lions. We bring hope where it's needed. Support causes that matter. Change lives. Change communities. Change the world. Visit lionsclubs.org to learn more.
ඔබ තුල සිටිනා මා තුල සිටිනා රට රකින්න විරුවා සටන් දෙමට වඩනා දැන් ඒ මොහොත තමා දැන් ඒ මොහොත තමා දෙමාපියන් අප දූ දරුවන් අප සතු ඉහළම දනයවුන් අපි රැකුණොත් මුළු රටම රැකේ මේ වීරත්වය පානා මොහොතයි நீயும் நானும் வீரனே இது நாட்டை மீட்கும் வேளையே சகலரையும் காத்திடலாம் நம்மை நாம் காத்தால் இதுவே அத்தருணம்
අපි රැකුණොත් රටත් රැකේ අපි රට වෙනුවෙන් අපේ කොටස හරියට මිටු කරමු AIA ඉන්ෂුරන්ස්
Right. So good evening, everyone, and let me warmly welcome each and every one of you to Money Matters, a panel discussion on financial inclusion and literacy in Sri Lanka. So this project is organized by the Lions Club of Colombo Host, District 306A1. Firstly, let me give you a bit of a background about the Lions Club International. So Lions Club International is the largest service club organization in the world with more than 1.4 million members, and 48,000 clubs are serving more than 202 countries since 2017. And we as Lions, we concentrate on few core areas, which are vision, the environment, childhood cancer, hunger, diabetes, and also the other pressing humanitarian needs. And in Sri Lanka, we have more than 550 Lions clubs with more than 15,000 members. And we, the Lions Club of Colombo Host, we are the pioneers in Lionism in the country, which established, or are the founders of the Lionism in the country. And we established our club exactly 62 years back. And over the years, the Lions Club of Colombo Host has organized and supported service initiatives that go beyond the general norms. We established the first eye bank in Sri Lanka, built water systems for villagers and children parks in Colombo, and conducted mobile cataract surgery camps, and organized policy and capacity development programs on pressing social issues such as cyber exploitation and violence. And now we are moving towards another strategic direction. So with that, let me give you a very brief introduction about what this Money Matters is all about. So Money Matters is a one-year-long capacity development project where we intended to optimize the financial literacy and inclusion in the country. And phase 1 will include 5 to 8 online series of panel discussions of this nature on financial inclusion and literacy, and with the participation of multiple stakeholders such as regulators, Sri Lankan banking and insurance market participants, international financial institutions, and non-governmental organizations and think tanks. So after this, we will move on to phase 2, and we will be embarking another 6 months long project where we conduct an outreach capacity development program for 50 low-income families to equip them with the required financial literacy capability. Without limiting that, we will be following up with them and enabling them with financial access and usage and quality as well. And also after this, it will be followed by other various projects in other parts of the country as well. So nothing is possible without our valued sponsors. So let me recognize our key partners. Firstly, PR Wire, the strategic communication partner, CIMA Sri Lanka being the knowledge partner, and AIA Insurance is our insurance partner, and SDB Bank, our banking partner, and also SLT Mobitel as a telecommunication partner. So with that, let me set few ground rules. So as you can experience right now, other than the panelist and the moderator, each and every one of you will be muted. And also, if you do have any colleague who could not get through the Zoom link, you have the option of viewing this program online via our Facebook page, which is Lions Club of Colombo Host 306A1. And also, this is a kind request to our audience. If you do have any questions, please direct it to there's a separate queue being created called question and answer line. So all your questions will be accommodated. And in case if we can't, due to time constraint, if you can't entertain your question right now during this period, we will make sure we will send this question to the relevant authority, and we will send you a follow-up email with our answer. So with that, let me quickly introduce our panelists for today. So firstly, let me start off with Mr. Salia Balasuriya, who is the Director, Regional Development Department of Central Bank of Sri Lanka. So Mr. Balasuriya is an eminent personality in the central bank with a distinguished career spanning more than 30 years. And also, he's serving as a Vice President of Sri Lanka Economic Association. And Mr. Balasuriya presently reading for his PhD in Social Science. And also, he has a honors degree, Bachelor's of Arts in Economics from University of California. Then it's my privilege to introduce Mr. Robin Newnham. He's presently serving as a Head of Policy Analysis, Alliance for Financial Inclusion, and he's responsible for financial inclusion policy work at AFI. AFI is an acronym that we use for Alliance for Financial Inclusion, and AFI is membership of 100 plus global central banks and financial policymakers. Prior to his assignment with AFI, Mr. Newnham was a senior policy advisor, international finance and policy advisor, financial inclusion at Her Majesty's Treasury, which is well known as UK government's Economic and Finance Ministry. And also, Mr. Newnham is a holder of MPhil from University of Oxford, UK on international relations, and holds an BA on modern history. And the next panelist, Mr. Tilak Peedigama. Presently, he is a CEO of SDB Bank, and again had a distinguished career of 32 years. And before joining SDB, he served at Nation Trust Bank as well as Standard Chartered Bank, Singapore. And Mr. Peedigama holds a master's degree in business administration from University of Jawaharlal. And also, he can be considered as a digital evangelist and was widely credited for launching FreeMe, the first digital bank in Sri Lanka. And open banking API was launched when he was served as a Chief Operating Officer at Nation Trust Bank. And let me introduce Mr. Ricardo Estrada. So let me say a very good morning to him, because he's joining from Guatemala City, and presently the time is around 3:30 early in the morning. So thank you very much for joining. So Mr. Ricardo Estrada is a certified expert in financial inclusion policy, director, tutor and course director of Frankfurt School of Finance and Management, Germany. And also he represents as head of Prudential Regulation Unit, which is the Central Bank of Guatemala. And Mr. Estrada is in charge of the certified expert in risk management and the certified expert in financial inclusion policy programs at CEFI, widely at CEFI. And also he is carrying more than 16 years of experience as a policymaker. And also he worked as a leader of the team in charge of the developing his home country's national financial inclusion strategy. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is the panel for today. Unfortunately, one of our panelists have not joined as yet. So once he joins, we will introduce him as well. That is past International President Lion Mahendra Amarsurya. And he was also the ex-chairman of Commercial Bank of Sri Lanka for more than 13 years. And so that's the panelist, that's the elite panel that we have today. And myself, my name is Asitha Pinnaduwa, a certified financial inclusion expert from Frankfurt College of Finance and Business. And also I presently serving as Assistant Vice President at Nations Trust Bank. So with that, let me give a very short introduction or rather opening remarks about today's session. Based on the Global Financial Literacy Survey done by S&P, which is stand for Standard & Poor, found that Sri Lanka has attained a 35% of financial literacy, while the book, if not we call it the print literacy, where the basic ability to read and write is about 92%. Unfortunately, that creates the highest gap among the financial literacy and the book literacy in the country. So even if I take one step further, even if I when I study the central bank financial inclusion survey result, which was conducted in 2018, and it was circulated among the general public a couple of rather 1.5 months back, it was revealed that 90% of the 90% of our Sri Lankans do have the access to basic banking account, but unfortunately, during the last calendar year, only 41% of them actually had borrowed. So out of that 41%, only about 51% had borrowed from the formal financial system. So rest, be it 48 to 49%, had borrowed that money from semi-formal and informal financial sector, meaning the microfinance, which are not, only few are regulated by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, most of them are not regulated, and loan sharks, in Sri Lankan terms, we call the polymudalalis. So that's how they have fulfilled their financial needs. So that which leads to lots of exploitation and overdebtedness. So that clearly indicates that as a nation, Sri Lanka, we have a problem. So again, if I may get your attention, so why this financial inclusion is so important? Interestingly, though this is a widely spoken subject globally, even locally right now, thanks to the regulator, still the financial inclusion, it's not a core pillar of the Sustainable Development Goals, which is well known as SDG. But interestingly, the financial inclusion is positioned prominently as an enabler of other development goals in the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, where it is featured as a target in out of 17 goals, 8 out of 17 goals, which includes eradicating poverty, ending hunger, promoting health and well-being, and gender equality and economic empowerment of women, promoting economic growth and jobs, supporting industry and innovation, and the last one being reducing inequality. Additionally, in SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals, the 17 SDGs, on the strengthening the means of implementation, there is an implicit role for greater financial inclusion through greater savings and mobilization for investment and consumption that can spur economic growth. There are many academic and research evidence that financial inclusion models can support the overall economic growth and the achievement of broader development goals in the country. So with that, let me commence the formal panel discussion. And I would like to refer the first question to Mr. Robin Newnham, who's representing Alliance for Financial Inclusion, a global think tank. Mr. Newnham, I would like to know, so we would like to start with the basics before we getting into a more granular level details. So in simple terms, consider this audience as a not so expert as you are in terms of financial inclusion. Please explain it to us. What's the definition of financial inclusion? And despite its importance, why it is still not recognized as a pillar of sustainable development goals?
Thank you so much, Asitha. And first of all, let me say what a pleasure it is to be invited to be part of this discussion here today. The Central Bank of Sri Lanka is one of our very prominent members, and we've been really impressed by the progress that's been made on the financial inclusion agenda here in recent years. So privileged to be part of this panel. Now, in answer to your question on definition, when we're talking about financial inclusion, we're in essence talking about a state in which someone has access to the financial services that they need to manage their money day to day, to cushion themselves against shocks, but also to plan for their financial future across the life cycle as well. And so in AFI, and as you mentioned, we're representing 100 central banks and policymaking institutions, quite a wide diversity. We do not have one individual definition of financial inclusion. Rather, we believe that that needs to happen at the country level, because there are very country-specific contexts to that. And often the formulation of a country's national financial inclusion strategy is a very good place to start that discussion. So what we do provide our members with is a methodology on how they can define financial inclusion for their own country context. And that methodology is based on what we would regard as really three key dimensions of financial inclusion. So first of all, you have the access dimension, and that's the very simple, does somebody have access to a transaction, bank account or mobile money account that they can use for everyday bill payment or other purposes? That's a very simple measure. But we're also very concerned with the second dimension, which is usage. So to what extent is an account actually being used to meet the real needs of the client? How is it actually making a difference to their life in practice, or is it just sitting there dormant once it's being opened? And then the third dimension that's equally key is the quality dimension. So what choice of products is really available to the consumer? Are they affordable? Are there redress mechanisms in place in case something goes wrong, in case a complaint needs to be made? So policymakers need to have all three of those dimensions in mind when they're looking at financial inclusion. We can't just be fixated on counting the number of accounts that have been opened. We have to look at the other two dimensions as well. Now, turning to the part of your question around the Sustainable Development Goals, and you set it out very nicely, Asitha, in your introduction, that financial inclusion is not one of the 17 SDGs, yet it is positioned there quite prominently as a critical enabler of many of the individual goals. Yes, it's an explicit target in 8 of them, but actually you can draw linkages between financial inclusion and 13 or 14 of the SDGs, possibly even more than that. So just to give a couple of examples there, if you look at SDG 1, ending poverty, if you have access to a digital mobile money account, that is providing the government with a means to efficiently make social welfare payments to vulnerable groups, and that can have a very direct impact on poverty eradication. Or if you look at SDG 3, which is around good health and well-being for all, if you have access to digital financial services, that can create the possibility to obtain microinsurance that can cushion against a major health shock, which, as we know, is often pushing people back into poverty when it does occur. And even goal 5 around gender equality, we know that financial inclusion can have a very empowering effect when women have control of their own financial resources, and even the ability to build up creditworthiness through their payment history, and thus get access as entrepreneurs. So I think most of us in the financial inclusion community, we're actually quite comfortable with this positioning of financial inclusion, not as an end goal in itself, but as a means to achieving those many other sustainable development goals. And that, I think, just highlights the real growth in awareness that we have seen of this concept of financial inclusion over the years, away from being a niche issue, perhaps, that just a few organizations were focused on. And now we can really see that it's got mainstream adoption, with many national governments committing to it and many international organizations focused on it as well. So I think we should take satisfaction from that and not be too concerned, in fact, that we don't see financial inclusion as a separate SDG by itself. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Newnham, for your comprehensive answer. So I would like to, of course, as you correctly said, the role of a policymaker cannot be ignored, though it's not the sole responsibility of the policymaker itself, but they lay the core foundation to make in terms of developing an inclusive economic framework. So let me turn it to Mr. Balasurya, who's a Director Regional Development Department of Central Bank of Sri Lanka. Mr. Balasurya, I would like to know, in Sri Lankan perspective, how Sri Lanka has progressed in respect of financial inclusion, and the progress update on newly launched National Financial Inclusion Strategy. Can you please unmute Mr. Balasurya? Tosita, can we please unmute Mr. Balasurya? Yes, now you're audible, Mr. Balasurya.
Yeah, right. Thank you, Asitha, for the introduction. And also, I'm privileged to be a panel member of this discussion, where I see all well-known personalities are sharing their thoughts from worldwide, RP and Guatemala, and also the Sri Lankan banks and Lions Club as well. And also, I must grateful to the organizers, the Lions Club of International and Colombo Sri Lanka chapter, and Asitha as well, organizing this discussion and invited me as a panelist, where these experts are in different field, where I can also learn much from them as well. So firstly, as you explained on the financial inclusion and how it works, and Robin also explained of basics of this financial inclusion. And firstly, I would like to say the Central Bank of Sri Lanka has two core objectives, that is maintaining economic and price stability and maintaining financial system stability. And therefore, Central Bank of Sri Lanka has to intervene as a regulator, intervene to get the achievement of the above objectives by many ways and by many departments established in the Central Bank. That may be, I think we have 29 departments established. And from those departments, while we are achieving this maintaining economic and price stability and maintaining financial system stability, we have the responsibility to achieve the financial inclusion, where it, as explained by Mr. Robin, it helps to achieve all the objectives in a nutshell. Because firstly, I can tell, because that if we are not laid down our strategies towards this our objective, and also subsidiary objectives to finally achieve the objectives, core objectives. There, you can believe me, as a central bank, there are two central bankers are here. If the regulator wants to achieve the core objectives, he has to facilitate the enablers, and he has to facilitate the environment as well. Without facilitating and without providing assistance and without assisting the enablers to facilitate the targets, achieve the targets, we can't achieve the main goal, where you can see if we can achieve the these all inclusion targets and objectives, finally we can achieve the economic and price stability and financial system stability, where you, Asitha, already mentioned that 48% of the people are believed to be getting the funds from outside, where if we can do something to get them into the formal sector, it is the reason to get the achievement of the core objectives. And also for that, having identified the things what you have explained, and the central bank and IFC collaboratively conducted the National Financial Inclusion Survey in 2018 and identify the status of financial inclusion at that time of the country, thereby identified several, I think, number of bottlenecks, issues, causes, etc., based on the survey outcomes. And therefore, central bank identified the way to achieve, way to eradicate those objectives and bottlenecks as well. They eradicate the causes and issues and bottlenecks as well. And therefore, this achieved the results, the received result gave us the way to plan the national financial inclusion strategy. For it is worth to understand the importance of financial inclusion, as explained by Robin. It is worth to understand how it relate to the inclusive development, how it relate to the enhancement of the people, how it relates to the livelihood development of the people. Having understand those things, and also there are a number of evidences in many articles, and identified those things, we think that based on the results what we received from the survey, we prepared the financial inclusion strategy and received the cabinet approval, and we have launched the financial inclusion strategy it is done by the Honorable Prime Minister in March 2021. And also now we have already planned, and also we have formed few groups, and we have formed National Financial Council to oversee the activities of the National Financial Inclusion Strategy and the achievement of the National Financial Inclusion Strategy. That is all with the support of the IFC. And we have then formed the governing body, the National Financial Council, and then the management committee as well, to oversee the implementation, how it works, what are the bottlenecks to be achieved, to be eradicated, or to be solved. Therefore, it is done in many ways. So the management committee overseeing the continuation of the progress, while we have already established 5 working groups we have identified 4 pillars in the National Financial Inclusion Strategy. Those 4 pillars are digital finance and payment, MSME finance, consumer protection, and promoting financial literacy and capacity building as the very vital pillars for the inclusion strategy, national inclusion strategy. From that point, we have already formed another group as another working group as an enabler to facilitate the data, the infrastructure, policy tools, and enabling regulatory environment. Without having the support of those regulatory environment, we can't achieve the expected goals. Therefore,
Yes.
we have formed these 5 different groups with the help of many people. I will come to later. I will give you some detail on this, and also these. I believe that these working groups now are all working together to achieve the to finalize the action plan for the Sri Lanka for each and every working each and every pillar. Then once we finalize the action plan and timeframes for the period of 2021 to 2023, we can definitely deliberately we can start the activities to achieve the expected goals, where it really relates to the achievement of the some of the, it indirectly and directly supports to the achievement of some of the SDG goals as well.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, these there may be 8 or 9 direct, indirect objectives, but once we fully organize and fully start the action plan, definitely we can achieve the most of these objectives from the financial inclusion strategy outcomes.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Balsurya. Thank you for that very comprehensive answer. So I think you made a valid point, because the regulator plays the key role and set the overall strategy, or rather build the entire architect of the entire inclusion strategy. So with that, I think it's inevitable that we get the support and the active participation from the local financial market, rather local financial system itself. Because while the policies there, the policies enable, so we need the actors to execute the strategy. So that's where the local financial market participants come into play. So with that, let me turn into Mr. Pinnaduwa, the CEO of SDB Bank, which plays a key role in this financial inclusion, overall the financial inclusion strategy of the country. So one critical question that always popped up in Sri Lankans' mind, that has been debated for so many years. So the one key fundamental question that they would be asking is, do Sri Lankan banks adequately cater to SME, MSME, and retail segments to bring an unbanked and underbanked segment of the population to consume the formal financial products? Just for the benefit of the audience, Ms. Pinnaduwa, I will briefly explain what is unbanked and underbanked. So unbanked is the people, rather individuals, who are completely neglected by the formal financial system. So underbanked means, the simple example that I given earlier, they may be having some sort of relationship with the formal financial sector, but they are not fully leverage the true capabilities of the financial sector. So they must be having a simple dormant account, but which is not active, and he's not saving anything. So as a result, the financial institution may not be able to grant a loan facility, grant a credit facility to them. So that's a unbanked and underbanked segment. So Mr. Pinnaduwa, I would like to hear it from you, because you are the one of the key pillars who are driving this segment. So over to you, Mr. Pinnaduwa.
Thank you, Asitha. Good evening to all of you. I think first of all, I'd like to thank Lions for inviting me here to participate in this panel discussion today. It's an honor and a privilege to be on a forum like this. So let me try to answer the question in a number of different ways. My first answer would be, when you look at the numbers, it appears that the banking system or the financial service system has not done enough, or not just done justice to the financial inclusion from a number standpoint. But I would say I don't think we should get necessarily get carried away with the numbers itself. We have to look at the practical situation as well. Why people don't come to banks, even though in Sri Lanka there are about 8-9% having a bank account is a great thing, but after that they do not come to the bank for anything. I mean, forget the loans, even for savings and things like that. It's again not that we don't have enough branches. We have about 6,000 branches. We have 5,000 ATMs across Sri Lanka. They are all interconnected. So we have a lot of infrastructure. So, but there are a few other things need to be addressed. So let me say a few things. Now, obviously, banks and NBFIs are regulated, so we need to maintain certain standards and protocols in granting credit, because we have to maintain the stability of the finance system as well. So you can flex this to some extent, but you can't go completely out of control and do this. So we have to do some work. I think Mr. Bharati pointed out a number of initiatives State Bank is taking. They're very welcome initiatives. So we are actually now moving forward, marching forward to achieve financial inclusion in true sense. I'm not only just having a bank account, for people to participate in this in a formal banking system. But there are certain challenges. Okay, now if you take why don't people come to banks and do transactions? So they have some mental blocks to get through. For example, one might assume, look, I think if I put all my records in the banking system, I may have to pay taxes later. I mean, that's one large issue I have seen why people want to sort of not come to the formal system, number one. So number two, if you take most SMEs and MSs in Sri Lanka, my personal experience, they do not maintain the business books or records in a manner that they themselves can explain to a bank and to get a loan or even to start a relationship. I don't think banks are inflexible. Banks are very flexible. Particularly my bank is very flexible. We associate with 80% of Sri Lankans who are rural communities and about 0.9% of estates, plantation workers. So we associate with them. So my finding has been they do not maintain formal records, and in fact sometimes they don't want to maintain formal records for whatever the reason. So as a result, they keep themselves out of the formal system. But not that they do not do business, not that they do not provide employment or rather generate employment. They do all that. Now, if I give you this number, which probably you may have not captured in most of your facts. So Sri Lanka has 800 billion Sri Lankan rupees in cash in circulation. 800 billion rupees. That's $4 billion US. Okay. So people are dealing with cash. Okay. One thing that probably I would like to sort of say, if we can control that, right, I think probably people will come to the banking system. That's one thing we should look at. I mean, that is where the digital can play a role, which we are again, I think, doing a lot of work. So I'm chairing one of the central bank committees also to populate Lanka QR. All these things eventually will bring people to the banking system. So the other advantage of digital, particularly when you start transferring to digital systems, you have a track record of what you have been doing for a period of 3 months, 6 months. So that is more of your behavior. So suppose if I'm paying a bill every day on the 20th of month, because I'm very disciplined, that itself is a good indicator to give him credit. So he's a disciplined man, right? If he's paying say 5,000 rupees every month for say his electricity bill, we know his level of income he can assess. You can't pay 5,000 unless you have certain income. So there are a lot of things we can do if you go digital. So the good news for Sri Lanka is a population of 21 million. But we have phone connection of 30 million. So this is one of the blessed countries in terms of digital infrastructure. So that is where I think the whole banking system now, not only my bank, all my colleagues of banks, the finance companies, even now telcos, we are on a major mission to get these people onto digital platforms, right? It might not make money for banks, but I think it's part of our contribution to the society. So we try to get them on there because there's available infrastructure. And also I'm very glad to say that central bank has again done a lot of things to enable this, right? But there's some more work to be done, particularly on the onboarding side. Still we have certain restrictions. I mean, unassisted onboarding is there, but I think it's not the best way to do it. But at the same time, I understand the regulatory standpoint as well. I think if we do few things like that, 21 million population can be brought to the finance system within no time. Okay, So I think our probably one of the action points for even your task force, which you will establish later. So how can we go after cash and bring this back to finance system will help, I think, the finance system plus most of the participants and non-participants be part of the formal system. I mean, that's sort of my answer to part of your question. The other part of the question is actually banks are taking risk and going after this informal sector, and we have been somewhat successful, somewhat not successful. But when things are difficult, like a post-COVID era, it can be more difficult. But I think we also had to, come up with different other strategies to sort of help this cause of, bringing people to financial inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Piedigama. So I think it's an interesting dimension. So in accounting term, in financial terms, we say the cash is the king, but in terms of financial inclusion, cash is not the real king. What we need, what we need is, as you correctly said, the clients, the individuals, bringing those cash back to the formal financial system, so that it will increase the balance sheet of the financial institution, so that the organization will be able to disburse that money as a form of loans and advances. I think the digital space, actually, you made a very valid point. I think that's why I think because we have seen lots of debate, or rather debate about the digital capabilities of Sri Lanka. So I think it's very interesting if you look at while we are struggling to get people to transact digitally, some underdeveloped nations than Sri Lanka, be it example African nations. I think they have made some tremendous strides by bringing these unbanked and underbanked segment to the formal financial sector through digital. So I think one classic example is M-Pesa. So I think that's a globally well-known classic case study how the digital capabilities can make people financially inclusive. Instead of creating whole loads of brick and mortar branches, by spending millions and billions as a capital expenditure. So thank you very much, Mr. Piedigama, for your insights. So with that, let me turn to Mr. Ricardo Estrada, who's wear two hats. One is as an academic, and other one is also as a role of a regulator. So Mr. Estrada, my question to you is, so despite digital, since we spoke about the digital piece, despite digital and technological advancement, globally financial ratio is about 33%. And in Sri Lanka, it's slightly better because our ratio is 35%, but not much of a change. So approximately globally, 3.5 billion of people are financially excluded. So we speak, as I said, we speak a lot about digital enablement. So why this such huge gap or rather vacuum?
Thank you very much, Asitha, for having me. I want to start by saying that I believe this forum is, you have done an amazing job putting this forum together. I think it's quite relevant for a country like Sri Lanka to be discussing about all these matters. So it's such an honor to be participating here and also to be representing the Frankfurt School of Business and Management. As you have mentioned, I am supporting Frankfurt School with their program on financial inclusion policy. Congratulations to you, Asitha, for being one of our certificate experts in financial inclusion policy. I would like to also share that only 3 weeks ago, it was released that according to the Shanghai rankings that considers 4,000 universities worldwide, Frankfurt School was awarded as the best finance business school, private business school in Germany. So we're very happy to be working for them and also to be promoting financial inclusion on the academic side. So coming back to your question, I think this panel has shown a very interesting sequence, because we all heard the very clear and comprehensive explanation about financial inclusion that Robin provided. It's very important to bear in mind that financial inclusion is about those three dimensions: access, usage, and quality. Then my colleague from the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, he highlighted the importance of having a national financial inclusion strategy. Actually, congratulations to Sri Lanka. I was checking some research that we have done in my own country, and according to this number that I have here, Sri Lanka has become the country number 70 that has launched a national financial inclusion strategy. And it's very interesting that you had the support from the IFC. So I was starting to read the strategy. I'm sure it's quite also comprehensive and also very updated. That's one of the advantages of having new, recently launched financial inclusion strategies. So what I wanted to say is that after understanding the dimensions and also understanding the importance of having these sort of strategies that aim at putting together private sector and also public sector efforts, coordinating both sides of the stories, the public and the private, and then listening to our colleague from the SDB Bank. This sequence is very important because we need to understand that in order to advance financial inclusion, it's a matter of teamwork. If you really want to have impact to a national level, you need to coordinate all policymakers that are involved and also the private sector. Thank you for mentioning, Asitha, a few moments ago about my experience developing the Guatemala's first national financial inclusion strategy. I also had the chance to lead the technical committee for implementation of this strategy. And I could share with you that one of the most tough challenges when you are working with this type of strategies is making people agree, making people from different backgrounds, with having different perspectives and also different interests. And we all know that sometimes public sector interests do not necessarily match private sector interests. So there are important challenges in implementing the strategies. So going back to your question, even though we have seen so many, I'd say, breaking innovations from the technological side, and we all know that this pandemic has really pushed forward, has really advanced all the digital approach, all the digital transformation. Even though we have seen all these improvements technology-wise, the figures still show that there are important challenges to overcome when it comes to, let me focus on usage. So I was also checking the last Findex. I was checking the figures of Sri Lanka, and I have noticed that the financial inclusion indicator for Sri Lanka is quite high, just as you mentioned. However, there are challenges regarding usage. So I believe technology has really helped regarding access. So channels, we now have more channels to access financial services, especially thanks to technology, particularly this device over here, the mobile phones. However, there are important challenges to be addressed regarding usage, because we do not only need to have ways to access these financial services, right? So we need to improve usage, to encourage people to make use of these financial services. And of course, there are so many different issues that we could discuss about the indicators of usage being low. But I want to focus on one in particular, and I want to do that because it's right in the title of the event: financial literacy. So there is a need, especially in developing and emerging countries, to increase financial literacy. Financial literacy, as we presented in the program of the Certificate Expert in Financial Inclusion from Frankfurt School, is part of the consumer empowerment regime, consumer empowerment and market conduct, also known as CEMIC. So it's very important to understand that financial literacy is critical, because financial literacy has to do not just with the skills, but also the basic understanding of financial services, and also the capability for people to make informed decisions. So if we want to advance financial inclusion, it's great that technology is helping us having more ways to access these financial services. However, usage still remains as a tough challenge. And I would like to highlight the importance of financial literacy, because people need to understand, they need to have the skills, they need to be able to make informed decisions in order to make the most out of all of these private sector and also public sector efforts that are aiming to advance financial inclusion. I think your microphone is off, Asitha.
Thank you very much. So Mr. Estrada, thank you very much for your insights. So I think you made a valuable point. I think we have seen even in Sri Lanka, we see a rapid shift from digital, from brick and mortar banking transaction to digital capabilities. I think, as you correctly said, I think there's a whole lots of transformation in that space. And for the benefit of the audience, and if you still wonder what this financial literacy is about, so financial literacy, just to simplify it further, so financial literacy is about your for any individual's ability to understand and effectively use various financial skills. It's such as the basic financial management and ability to do a budget for yourself, and investing. So that's basically what financial literacy is about. So still, I think, as you correctly said, Mr. Estrada, we have quite a way to go, and so as globally as well. So with that, let me move on to we have a special message from our knowledge partner, CIMA, Chartered Institute of Management Accountancy. So we don't need much of introduction about that global institution. So I would like to invite Mr. Tharindu Wijewardena, who will be representing CIMA, to share his message on behalf of the CIMA Sri Lanka as a knowledge partner for this session.
Thank you very much, Asitha, and thank you very much for the opportunity and the introduction that is given to CIMA. Well, CIMA professional qualification is a household name in Sri Lanka with over 55 years of rich history in the country and over 102 years of history in the world. And today, what I'll be talking to you about is a few entry points, the pathways that professionals like you could take on and follow the program to be competent in business skills, people skills, leadership skills, technical skills, and more importantly, the digital skills that suits the future. So I'm going to go through a quick presentation for about 5 minutes, and I'll start the introduction right away. Building business and finance teams for the future. I'm not going to go into detail. I'll be introducing 5 pathways for professionals who are here today. And let's go through these names as I go through my slide deck. So how can we as CIMA help you achieve resilience and growth? Now, what you see on the screen is the CIMA curriculum that was introduced back in 2019, which we have 4 levels from certificate level, operational, management, strategic level. And we, as a pioneer qualification that encourage innovation, it was back in 2015 that we went completely online. Now, that gave us a fantastic opportunity for us to transform from having to test exams at test centers to take the exams to your home, so that students could take the exam without having to step outside. So this was a tremendous advantage for candidates who have been taking the exams since last May. Now, if you notice the curriculum altogether, we have 4 levels with 16 examinations to go. So that's the basic structure altogether. But you as corporate professionals with experience coming into play, we would like to introduce these elements. So let's take a quick look at you. You could be a C-suite professional with over 15 years of experience. You could be a chartered accountant. You could be a senior manager. You could be a middle manager, or else you could be a senior executive or someone who has completed a business degree with over 3 years of experience. And you might consider, okay, what would be my entry point if I wish to follow the CIMA qualification? Now, we'd like to introduce 3 entry points for the case studies that you see on the screen: operational case study, management case study, and strategic case study, which enables you to complete the qualification through a series of preparation programs and complete them within timelines of 6 months, 1 year, 1.5 years to 2 years. Now, let's go through this a little in detail. The C-Suite Business and Finance Program, the direct entry for you to take the final case study of CIMA. You need to be a CEO, a CFO, a director, a senior manager with minimum 5 years in the strategic level and overall 15 years of overall 15 years of experience. And then you are looking at CS Sri Lanka members who are 6+ years of experience in their bag. And if you notice, taking this into consideration, we are looking at the final case study exam for you to complete the qualification. Let's take a look at a few candidates who had gone through the program and have become CIMA members over the last years. And these are exam completes as well. And then you have the next level entry point, the management case study, where we consider the senior managers with over 10 years of experience. So heads of finance, senior accountants, senior managers, so on and so forth. And then we have another pathway for middle managers as well. So this will grant you an entry point for you to start from the management case study exam of CIMA and complete the balance exams by taking 2 case studies to complete the examination structure. And then we have another entry point. If you are a middle manager, you start from the management case study exam of CIMA and then complete the balance of the entire qualification. Now, we also have an opportunity that is called Finance Leadership Program, which is an entirely online arrangement of having to go through the learning as well as testing from the comfort of your own home. And that has advantages of completing with given deadlines to complete within 1 year to 2 years to 3 years. Now, I'm going to go through all of this very quickly, and I don't want to take a lot of time introducing all of this today. I just want to give you that insight. These are options, these are professional pathways that are available for candidates with experience coming into play. Now, what I would like you to do at this point is this. You take a quick snapshot of the screen that you see right now, okay? And at the same time, I'll be sharing a link on the chat window. And if you're interested to find out more details about these pathways that are on offer, and for you to understand what would be the best case entry point for you as a professional with X number of years of experience, with CA qualification, with your bachelor's degrees, with your master's degrees, and all of that, we are happy to get into a call with you and run through them in detail. So I'm not going to go beyond this, and I'd like to thank once again for the opportunity for CIMA. And do look into the chat window for the link and start entering your details, and we'll pick up a conversation in the coming week. Thank you very much. Back to you, Asitha.
Thank you very much, Tarindo, and thank you for being one of our valued partner, rather our official knowledge partner as well. So I think since we spend almost actually more than an hour, we would like to take a quick break of 2 minutes. So we'll be back soon. So you can stretch yourself a bit for 2 minutes.
We are always preparing to protect our loved ones. Not always for what will happen, but for what could happen. With a life insurance cover that grows every year, you ensure that whatever comes your way, your loved ones are always protected. Introducing AIA Super Protector, the life insurance that helps you prepare to put your loved ones first. AIA Insurance.
Anona.
Mama, you pay up pay karanna.
Are maru.
සලියාවනේ
හරිස්
අන්න කෙල්ල
පර්ස් එක නැතත් පේමන්ට් ෂුවර් කරන්න අදම UPay එකට මාරු වෙන්න Google Play Store හෝ Apple App Store හරහා UPay app එක නොමිලේ ඩවුන්ලෝඩ් කරගන්න.
CIMA qualification and CGMA designation has provided me with the edge to be successful in securing the current position with my employer.
The CIMA C-Suite program helped me bridge the gap between my existing knowledge with the latest trends in business and finance.
The CGMA designation had opened career doors for me. I got an opportunity thanks to the skills I learned from C-Suite program.
Through the CIMA C-Suite program, I learned how to be more strategic in my thinking at work. This has given me more confidence when making high-level decisions.
The CIMA C-Suite program shaped my critical thinking skills.
What makes a nation great? Is it the richness of its heritage, the beauty of its natural bounty, the state of its state-of-the-art, or is it
Confidence
the
when making
bonds that
high-level
bind us? For decades, SLT Mobitel has been linking Sri Lankan lives and uniting the nation. Whatever the future may look like, we'll always be right here, connecting you to the things you care most about. SLT Mobitel, the connection.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Money Matters, online panel discussion on financial inclusion and literacy in Sri Lanka, organized by Lions Club of Colombo Host, District 306A1. So let's bring our focus back to the discussion that we have been having. I would like to direct this question to Mr. Balasurya. Again, we go back to the original discussion that we have been having. In Sri Lanka, as I stated earlier, 90% of the individuals do have the account ownership, but only the financial access and usage is only 45%. From regulatory perspective, I know Mr. Pidhigam also touched in terms of the practicality. I mean, in terms of the individual aspect of it. So, from the regulatory perspective, I mean, what do you think? I mean, where do you stand as a regulator on this aspect?
Actually, as you mentioned, it is quite right that our print literacy is around 92%, where we can see the level of financial literacy is at maybe less than the half of this achievement of expected achievement of our goals of many, not only the financial inclusion strategy, but also we have done number of things to the betterment of the general public island-wide. However, we have, I think, identified this from our first survey in 2018. And now we are now going to have another inclusion, national inclusion survey, financial inclusion survey, to find out where we are now, whether we have achieved something or still in the same manner. But if I have gone through some of the international versions of the little data book on financial inclusion 2018, and the global indexing database measuring financial inclusion and the financial fintech resolution 2017, there we can see some of mixed achievement as of date at 2018, where we have in our survey also we have not touched some of these areas, but we can see in the reports where we are we are good in some indicators, and we are not so good and in some indicators. And for the reasons I think clearly mentioned by Mr. Piyadikama as a veteran banker, and because SDB and RDB and few other banks are working with a number of SMEs. Their category of the customer are mostly the MSME cluster, as I believe, if I am not mistaken. I think so. They have mostly achieved the cluster of MSME part, whereas the large banks are not good in achieving the MSME sector. And also we can see the lower level, the main reason of lower level of the financial literacy, and also I can say that it is because of the lower level of financial education, financial inclusion among the country, and thereby having number of misconceptions. And it clearly mentioned by Mr. Pedegama, many misconceptions. Whether they might be they have to pay their taxes if they maintain accounts, so there may be number of misconceptions, and also not having required knowledge on the use of formal financial services and fear of using the formal financial sector, and also they don't know about how to use, and also they don't know about the instruments available with the formal financial sector. And also they are not aware about the subsidized credit schemes and other facilities provided by these formal financial sector, and also the Central Bank of Sri Lanka with the help of all stakeholders island-wide. That is why it is as my friend from Guatemala clearly mentioned, that we have we have launched and we have now established the strategy. But very difficult part is to implement all the action plans to achieve the objectives. I think it is. Maybe the one of the most difficult area to get all the people into the same table and discuss the matters and get the help. As I mentioned, there are a few clusters, there are few pillars. With the help of all stakeholders, we now trying to have some sort of action plan to overcome the obstacles and issues faced by these, especially the untouched, unbanked, untouched cluster in the grassroots level, and also MSME sector. And also that is why the considerable portion of the regional rural level communities are excluded from the formal sector, formal financial sector, and mostly they meet their financial requirement would be from the semi-formal and the informal sectors, where you say the Poli Mudalali and other all unregistered, I think, people where we have some sort of semi-formal sector as well, like the cooperative societies and microfinance institutions in microfinancing, giving microfinance, and community-based organizations and state programs like Samurti, Divinaguma and Pronsets and other things can be considered as a semi-formal, not fully formal, not regulated by the central bank. And we regulate normally, as you know, licensed commercial bank, licensed finance and leasing companies, and four numbers of microfinance institutions and licensing mobile providers, mobile network operators, and so on and so forth. And all others in this formal and non-formal, semi-formal sector, all others are in informal, where you can see a rotating savings and credit association, money lenders, friends, relatives, and other unregistered credit providers. Having understood the difficulty of getting into the formal sector because of these, mainly the exclusions, the number of reasons are there to the exclusions. I think it is familiar to you all. The exclusions happen in many ways. There are many phases to this. Mostly these exclusions happen due to the poverty, and maybe due to the unbanking or untouched, or maybe due to the less knowledge in financial literacy. That may be the reason for these all the exclusion, where we can see all MSMEs are unorganized entrepreneurs, where the formal sector have very organized, and they have some sort of accounting procedures, budgeting, and formal procedures, and everything in place, where they can get the support of the financial services from formal sector. Yeah, that is what we have already identified. So, though identifying those things, we have now trying to assess the level of financial literacy of the population and identify key gaps already identified. Now we want to have more identification to identify the gaps. Without identifying the gaps and obstacles, bottlenecks, we can't have some sort of solutions for that one. And also we are now improving coordination of financial literacy effort. As you know, for my belief, there are a number of financial literacy, isolated literacy efforts island-wide, done by number of stakeholders. That is why we now form this financial inclusion strategy to get all the people into one basket, and then we can collaboratively do all the financial literacy effort without duplicating and without wasting our time, because then we can maximize our benefit as well. And also we now trying to increase financial literacy among customers in many ways. Might be having number of awareness programs by because we have 6 regional officers with us. We have 6 regional officers with us in Anuradhapura and Anuradhapura, Matara, Matale, Nuwara, Trincomalee, Kilinochchi, covering 25 districts in Sri Lanka, island-wide. And so these, from these, the help of these all people, the regional people, well, now we create this number of financial literacy programs, awareness, competency, skill development program, technical know-how, and many things with the help of the these all participating credit institutions and other stakeholders as well. That is private and public sector stakeholders, not only the public sector, but also the private sector who have the experts on different matters. We get them and do some know-how to the betterment of these people. And also
Mr. Balasuri, actually, you made a very, if I may interrupt, I think yes, you made a very valid point. So I think there are lots of initiatives are being taken by the regulator as well as the local actors as well. So, be it financial institution, be it INGOs and NGOs as well. So if I may take this question to past International President Lion Mahendra Amarasuriya. I'll come back to you again, Mr. Balasuri, on that.
Okay.
Because since we're talking about the same topic, so I'd like to bring this question to PIP, rather past International President Lion Mahendra Amarasuriya, where he gave the leadership for over 1.2 million Lions across the globe. So thank you for joining. I know that you had a technical difficulty, Lion Mahendra, so we warmly welcome you. So my question, stemming from what Mr. Balasuri was actually speaking about, what is the role of INGOs and NGOs to optimize the financial inclusion in the global and local context? Can we please unmute PIP Mahendra?
Sorry, I got late to come in due to some problem about connectivity. As far as Lions are concerned, I cannot talk on behalf of all NGOs and INGOs, but as far as Lions are concerned, recently we got involved in at least Lions Club International Foundation got a program to support micro lending, microfinance, and gave a few grants to organizations, to countries where Lions are getting involved in microfinance. We ourselves got a grant of $100,000 US because we have a foundation referred to as Lanka Lions Foundation. The objectives of the foundation is to alleviate poverty in various forms, and one strategy we were using was something like microfinance lending. We were not taking deposits as such, but we were getting Lions clubs to recommend selected individuals who could be supported with microfinance in their particular little projects, whether it be orchid growing or sewing or marketing or a variety of small industries. So we used that 100,000 US dollars together with the funds that we had already raised, and we have quite a substantial capital now to support poorer people, mainly women, but also men, in their projects that they had started, or to also assist them in starting a new project. So in that way, we got involved with some sort of effort at poverty alleviation. That's how I can say about Lions Clubs International. I think there are special INGOs and NGOs who are involved in this type of project, about which I am not aware, but what I mentioned was in connection with Lions International, which is the largest service club organization in the world. Yes, Asitha.
Thank you very much, Past International President Lion Mahendra. So I would like to have a quick rapid fire question. So I would appreciate if the speakers could take about a minute or 1.5 minutes time to present your answers. So I would like to start off with Mr. Robin Newnham, who also represent the AFI, which is a global think tank. So Mr. Newnham, I would like to know, again, the financial inclusion and literacy is a widely spoken topic. So based on your research findings, have you seen the financial inclusion actually being a lever or a tool which can be used to enhance economic growth?
Thank you, Asitha, for the question, and indeed I'll try to be brief in my answer. I think what we can say there is financial inclusion and economic growth are very closely correlated, but it's difficult to prove causation one way or the other. I think the way we have to look at it is both are reinforcing of the other objective. And we have to bear in mind that we still have relatively limited, good quality cross-country data on financial inclusion. The World Bank Findex has been mentioned, and that is a fantastic data set, but it's only been available to us for the last 10 years, whereas we usually measure economic growth over a longer period than that. But there have been a couple of studies nevertheless, including by the International Monetary Fund, that do suggest that there are some significant growth benefits, both from financial deepening and also from widening access to the financial system as well. I think where we're on safer ground is where we look at the micro level and the benefits that accrue to individuals and to households from financial inclusion. And there is a very compelling evidence base from randomized controlled trials in different countries that show very significant benefits. Asitha, you've mentioned the M-Pesa example in Kenya today. One study by Harvard there showed that more than 200,000 people had been brought out of absolute poverty just by having access to M-Pesa mobile money service. And it also found that the effect was more pronounced for female-headed households. So there's a significant gender equality effect there as well. So I think overall, we need more evidence, we need more research, but we can already see there is a compelling case for policymakers to pursue financial inclusion and the contribution that it does make to a whole range of national objectives that they may have.
Thank you, Mr. Newnham. So my next question, I would like to present it to Mr. Tilak Piedigama. So Mr. Piedigama, my question to you is, again, this is one of the rapid fire questions. Licensed commercial banks and NBFIs, non-banking financial institution, what are the expectations from the regulator to optimize the financial inclusion in Sri Lanka and the literacy as well?
Well, I think as I mentioned earlier, one of the things I think we had dealt with is the onboarding of citizens to the formal financial sector. So if we can have some kind of a tier structure where we don't, I mean, I'm talking about KYC and due diligence and so on. If we can have some kind of flexibility in bringing this people who are not on the system to the formal finances, that will be helpful certainly. But again, and that requires some level of discussion, arrangement and agreement with the regulator and all participants to make it work. So once they are brought in, we can make them more of the formal, and that's one thing. And also the other piece which I spoke about earlier of having too much of cash in the society. if regulator can come with some kind of, I think, formality to sort of, sort of bring that down and make them digital, you can actually achieve a lot. Because it also has the economic value of the country. 800 billion rupees in our pocket is a lot of money with no economic value. I mean, bring that down to say, bring 10% of that to the formal system, your cost of credit will go down tremendously. Then banks can take more risk as well in terms of granting loans to MSMEs and SMEs, even with or without formal documentation and so on. I think it's just not one thing, and there are many things. Then I think all of you mentioned something about education. In fact, we are running a free education program for MSMEs across Sri Lanka together Sri Lanka. Qualified accountant is coaching now some of the SMEs about their financial management, forecasting, bookkeeping, and all that what is required to have in place for them to run a business. So, like that, we have to do a lot of things, and obviously, use of technology. I'm not talking about digital technology used by the bank. Technology can fast track anything, right? Because if humans can't overcome their limitations, we are limited. We are built and designed with limitations. But of course, our limitation can be overcome by using technology, and we can move from 1G to even 6G within a reasonable time if we put our thoughts and action right. Then I think this financial inclusion could be a story of history. Because from a business standpoint, this can be a larger problem, but always larger problems are larger business opportunities as well. So there will be interest in looking this from business standpoint as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pedigama. So my next question would be to Mr. Ricardo Estrada. So again, you can spend about 1.5 minutes. So based on the global experience, I mean, what sort of the policy tools should regulators and the financial market actors should adapt to improve the financial inclusion and literacy?
Thank you, Asitha. I'm gonna be very, very brief. And please forgive me, audience, for going back to this topic, but it's too relevant, so I have to bring it up again. So a national financial inclusion strategy would be like the collection of initiatives and policies put together in only one place with a specific focus, which is to advance financial inclusion. So I would encourage, I know Sri Lanka has already launched your own strategy, but for other countries that still don't have their strategy, to develop a national financial inclusion strategy and always to listen to what the practitioners, to the private sector, the financial services providers have to say regarding what do they think could help advance financial inclusion, not just have the policymakers mindset, because sometimes that is a mistake that we regulators tend to commit, that we have a mindset very close, and we do not open our mindset, we do not listen to the practitioners. They have the answers to develop truly effective financial inclusion initiatives. So on a macro perspective, I would go for these strategies because I truly believe they really have an important impact. If we go to some specific types of policies, I think, Asitha, one very important aspect that needs to be supported is credit. The credit, especially because of the pandemic and because of the lockdowns and because of the recession, credit needs to flow. So regarding financial inclusion, personally, I think the credit dimension or the credit perspective, it's very important. So policymakers and regulators need to understand, for example, that it's important to have flexible requirements for granting credits for MSMEs. And this is just an example. And when policymakers decide to introduce this type of reforms, like having more flexible requirements for granting credits, it is also important to keep the balance of the prudential approach. And that balance can be maintained if policymakers have in mind the constitution of reserves or provisions. So if you have new requirements which are more flexible, you can compensate with the provisions of reserves being more strict. So I would say from a macro perspective, national financial inclusion strategies, always listening to the practitioners. And from a very specific type of policies, Asitha, I would recommend bearing in mind having the importance of helping credit to flow, especially in these challenging times because of the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Estrada. So with that, I would like, for the interest of time, I would like to move on to the Q&A session. So far we got actually many questions. So we'll try to accommodate as many as possible. So first, actually, it's on the digital capability, digital platform. So I would like to direct this question to Mr. Tilak Piyadigama, because he spearhead the central bank, one of the steering committees in relation to the digital banking capability as well. So the question is, Mr. Piyadigama, all banks have introduced mobile apps to review accounts and do transactions. An initiative may be to increase financial inclusion of those in the informal sector. But how safe and secure are these platforms to do transactions?
I would say it's very safe, because all banks come under the guidance of again central bank. Central bank has specific minimum control standards for information security and so on. So that we are required to follow. In fact, they audit us, they get third party parties to audit and so on. So it's pretty secure. And apart from that, most banks, for an example, SDG Bank has ISO 27001 certification for data centers and infrastructure. So that gives you another layer of protection. Plus, given the world is full of cybersecurity related issues, so every bank has taken adequate measures to address them by having, improving their information security areas like say firewalls and all the other good things that you need to do. Banks have got in place. So I think with that, I can give a comfort, but I can't give a guarantee. But I can give a lot of comfort that it's safe, it's secure, it's fast.
Thank you, Mr. Piyadigama. So next question is, again, I would like to keep it open so that anyone of you would interested could pick this question. From the customer point of view, financial inclusion is low because of complicated processes of the banks. Going forward, is there a clear strategy in place to simplify the process in formal sectors of banking and financial institutions in order to enhance the inclusion?
Well, I'll take that question on behalf of everyone since I'm the only banker here. I think I can speak for all bankers because I'm a part of the bank, part of the SLBA with all the banks. Yes, we do take a lot of trouble to re-engineer ourselves and to make a better experience for our customers. That's an ongoing process. That's why I'm very keen on digital side, because digital side you can make it very rich experience using modern techniques like design thinking, UI, UX, and all that can be brought in digital. And by doing that, we all can provide better experiences. And in fact, now Sri Lanka bank is interconnected. For an example, through JustPay network, I can take money from another bank and make a payment through an app which I run. Those are, I would say, Sri Lanka's payment network has become world class. In Sri Lanka, you can transfer money from one bank to the another any branch anywhere in Sri Lanka within few seconds, right? And not many countries have got to that level of sophistication. So all that given, I think we are improving experience day by day. I'm sure there are more to come as well.
Thank you, Mr. Piyadigama. So for the interest of time, I would like to pose one last question. So I think I would direct this question to Mr. Newnham. What are the initiatives the regional large banks have taken in the recent past to get the masses, mainly the rural communities, which you mentioned is about 80% of the population, to move out of the informal sector or to move into the banking sector?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Of course, this is quite a complex challenge that many countries are facing. I think ultimately need to be providing products in a way that's accessible, but also in a way that there are clear use cases. I think a key lever that many governments have had success with is the transfer of welfare payments into digital accounts. So where you've had mobile money schemes deployed, and then the government using those for the welfare payments has provided the critical first use case. The challenge then is to provide incentives that those funds are not simply withdrawn every time they are received once a month or once a fortnight, but actually retained within the digital ecosystem. So that's where the connectivity to different use cases, and also where developments in fields like behavioral insights can play quite a key role in trying to influence the behavior of consumers. So it's a complex challenge, but there are some interesting country examples like India, China, Kenya, that's already been mentioned, where quite a lot of progress has been achieved here.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Newnham. So with that, I think we would like to close the formal session. So in essence, if I may take 30 seconds or so. So I think financial inclusion, it should be, and literacy, and should be an integral part of the entire financial ecosystem, which is it is not inevitable, because without having that inclusiveness, it's very difficult to achieve the required economic growth, as well as we discuss that this is not being mentioned as or rather being recognized as a key pillar of the sustainable development goals. Still it assists 7 out of 18 sustainable development goals. So globally we have seen a good traction. I think even locally we see thanks to the digital enhancement, digital capability, the Sri Lanka also moving towards the right direction. And also, as we say, every dark cloud has a silver line. I think the global pandemic issue also enable, or rather compel the consumers to getting into the digital platforms as well. So it is having that inclusiveness, it's critically needed. And that is the right thing to do, because financial inclusion is the economic opportunity, a bridge between economic opportunity and the growth. So with that, I would like to conclude the formal session, and to deliver the vote of thanks, I would like to invite the club secretary, Lion Dr. Mahen Vimal-Dharma, to do the honors. So with that, thank you very much. Mahen, over to you.
Yes. On behalf of the Lions Club of Colombo Host, I'd like to thank our esteemed panelists this evening. Lion Mahendra Amarsurya, Mr. Tilak Piyadigama, Mr. BLJS Balasurya. Thank you very much for enlightening us from Sri Lankan perspective and coming on board in our attempt to bring about financial literacy in our country. Mr. Ricardo Estrada, Mr. Robin Newnham, we truly appreciate the global perspective you brought in regarding financial inclusion. Thank you, Lion Asitha Pinnaduwa, our club president, who not only moderated this session, but this whole project was a brainchild of his. I would also like to express our gratitude for our partners this evening, PR Wire, CIMA, SDB Bank, AIA Insurance, and SLT Mobitel. I'll be failing in my duties if I don't thank the Financial Literacy Project Committee of our Lions Club for all the efforts put into making this evening a reality. Tusita Amarasinghe and his team of OS2 Works for handling the logistics of this seminar. Thank you. Last but not least, thank you all the participants who are on Zoom and Facebook Live for being part of this program. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mahen. So we will be having another 8 sessions like this. I hope our audience will be with us for the rest of the session as well. So until we meet up again, thank you very much, and stay safe and have a pleasant evening and weekend. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are always preparing to protect our loved ones. Not always for what will happen, but for what could happen. With a life insurance cover that grows every year, you ensure that whatever comes your way, your loved ones are always protected. Introducing AIA Super Protector, the life insurance that helps you prepare to put your loved ones first. Not always for what will happen, insurance, but for what could happen. With a life insurance cover that grows every year, you ensure that whatever comes your way, your loved ones are all.
Morning, bossa.
Morning, sana. Komo tatte.
UPay app එක නිසා වැඩ එන එක ක්‍රීම් බනිස් වගේ නැගලා යනවා. ගිලන.
Right. Morning.
iPhone sir.
iPhone. Bomu tamil kidiya.
Bomu.
හැම වෙලාවෙම මාරු සල්ලි අත ගන්න ඕනේ නෑ මාමේ. ස්මාර්ට් ෆෝන් එකකට අන්න අර වගේ ලංකා QR සපෝට් කරන UPay app එක දාගෙන ඒකෙන් ගනුදෙනු කරන්න.
ඕක පුරුද්දකට තියාගත්තාම වැඩෙත් ලේසි අපිත් ආරක්ෂිතයි.
470යි. අයියෝ මිස් මාරු සල්ලි නැද්ද?
ඒ ෆෝන් එකේ apps 100ක් තිබුණත් වැඩක් නෑ. ලංකා QR කෝඩ් එක සපෝට් කරන UPay app එක නැත්තම්. කීයද බුදුලාලි ගාන?
435යි.
මැසේජ් එකේ.
හරි මත්තා සල්ලි ආව.
දෙන්න මිස් සල්ලි.
ආනෝනා.
මම UPay app එකෙන් පේ කරන්න.
හරි මරු.
Morning. සල්ලි ආවනේ.
හරි මිස් සල්ලි ආව මිස්.
අන්න කෙල්ලෝ.
Bye.
අන්න කෙල්ලෝ.
සානා.
Google Play Store හෝ Apple App Store හරහා UPay app එක නොමිලේ ඩවුන්ලෝඩ් කරගන්න.
CIMA qualification and CGMA designation has provided me with the edge to be successful in securing the current position with my employer.
The CIMA C-Suite program helped me bridge the gap between my existing knowledge with the latest trends in business and finance.
The CGMA designation had opened career doors for me. I got an opportunity thanks to the skills I learned from C-Suite program.
Through the CIMA C-Suite program, I learned how to be more strategic in my thinking at work. This has given me more confidence when making high-level decisions.
The CIMA C-Suite program shaped my critical thinking skills.
What makes a nation great? Is it the richness of its heritage, the beauty of its natural bounty, the state of its state-of-the-art, or is it the bonds that bind us? For decades, SLT Mobitel has been linking Sri Lankan lives and uniting the nation. Whatever the future may look like, we'll always be right here, connecting you to the things you care most about. SLT Mobitel, the connection.